I'd like to introduce Mark now. A long list of accomplishments Mark has. Can't memorize them, have to read them because it just goes on forever, front, back, and then I left the last chapter off. So anyway, we've gone on a long time. I'm not going to say a whole lot other than Mark is a local artist who has just done some really, really, really amazing things, and he's here to tell you all about it. And he works at UTSA at the Arts College, and yeah, I can't tell you how much I appreciate him being here to share this with us. He's also the leader of our Bird City Certification Renewal Project.
So now I know you're lying about a lot of things. I'm not the leader. I'm just the one that like schedules the meetings.
Oh, hey.
I need this right here. Do I need? Is this
for
the online people?
Yeah.
Let's see if I can put this here. Good evening, y'all. I look out and I see so many faces of people that have become such dear friends over the past year of kind of working on the Bird City certification. I was also here 2 meetings ago because I got one of the mini grants, what, 3 or 4 years ago was it, Britt, to fund some artist-led bird walks. And it completely changed the whole trajectory of my art practice. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that here in a second, but I'm just so deeply grateful. If you were here 2 meetings ago, please still laugh at my jokes because I shared a bunch of them then, and we'll get into that. But tonight, what I want to do is I want to talk a little bit about who I am as an artist and how I came to the arts, and then share 3 or 4 different projects with you. Britt, how long do we have to go till? About 30 minutes? Great, perfect. Okay. Because I can talk for a very long time. Because if I don't put just you can interrupt me. But my background, so I grew up, my father is from El Salvador, my mother is from Puerto Rico. I grew up in Central America as a child, but then came here to San Antonio for high school, which I loved my years here, and didn't go to college right away. I worked in landscaping and manual labor in the Northeast, and my life was changed at the Baltimore Book Festival because I was the one that was tearing down all of those huge tents. And at like 2 o'clock in the morning, I was in a van coming back, and I was like, I cannot do this. I do not want to do this. So I went to community college for a couple of years, and I ended up learning about the profession of social work, where I completely fell in love with working with people. And I graduated. I was not interested in the arts at all, but cared deeply about our community, primarily working with people that were unhoused here and in South America, but working inside of traditional social service agencies was just a little too confining for me. And one day I picked up a camera and I fell in love with photography. And so I started working inside of the arts. And most of what I do inside of the arts, yes, is photography, but it's this term called social practice. And you may have never heard about it. But most people, when they hear that I'm an artist, they're like, oh, do you paint? And I'm like, no. They're like, oh, do you sculpt? No. And really what I do is I do participatory and collaborative projects with communities. It's almost everything I do is working with people. It's working interdisciplinary. I'm learning from different fields all the time, including ornithologists and birds. I'm thinking about site and place and what does that context bring to things? How does it change the meaning of it? And I'm always trying to think about how we can share authorship. So often inside of the arts, it's about a singular name or a singular person, but very rarely does it just one person. It's so many people kind of coming together to do that. So these are kind of the things that I'm going to talk about today. A few other things that are important to me is I'm always trying to make work with people and with communities, not about people or about communities. I value dialogue over debate. As we know, when we start to talk about maybe something really easy, we can often get into some larger political issues. And I really try to value dialogue. For me, is about listening. Debate is about trying to convince somebody that I'm right and you're wrong. And while I think that we need spaces for rigorous debate in our society, I try to value dialogue when we talk about a lot of these issues inside of projects. I always have one foot in and one foot out. I am an academic. I work at UTSA. I've been a professor for 13 years, not just there. And so I keep one foot in academia and one foot way the hell out of it as far as I can get. One foot in the arts, one foot way far out as I can as well. And then also for me, invitation has always been something that's been important. Inviting people into something, and it's not just with our words, but I believe it's the posture and the way that we kind of navigate the world. And you'll see in so many of these projects, I'm working with people, and it's inviting people to create alongside of me. Photography was my intro into the arts, and the very first project that I worked on, I was thinking deeply about food issues, and I started photographing the interiors of people's refrigerators. I remember I was in my like mid-20s. I told my mom that I was doing this, and she was like, sweetie, that is not a good idea. We joke about this now because it's kind of the project that goes on and on. And but it wasn't just about photographing people's refrigerators. It was also about combining that with a little bit of text and a little bit of information. And so this is a midwife and a high school science teacher in a two-person household in San Antonio, Texas. At the time, I was cared deeply about food issues and was working with another artist on a documentary about hunger and food insecurity. Eric Cooper, who's the director of the San Antonio Food Bank, was an early partner in this project, and I'm deeply grateful for him. Here's another one. This is a favorite of many people, a bartender, one-person household in San Antonio, Texas. And it stunk really bad when we were photographing this fridge. But thankfully, this project, I ended up photographing over 100 refrigerators in 40 different communities across the country. It was a traveling exhibition, and in every place I would go, I just didn't want to show the photographs. And so what I started to do was partner with community organizations. This is an example just here in San Antonio. It showed at the Southwest School of Art in the main public library. But we did over like 30 events in the 3-month period that it was up. And this for me represented a major shift in my art practice because I began to care more about what could happen inside of spaces than I did what was hanging on the wall. I still cared about what was on the walls, but it was about coming together with people to do things together. And that shifted. And that has led me to working with young people to explore their own migration stories. It's led me to working with young people to do oral histories of their families. It's led me to create pirate radio stations in rural towns in Texas that played oral histories of people that were in a nursing home during COVID. Yes, it's illegal, but they give you like a warning before they fine you. So you can kind of do that. It's led me to working with families of migrant farm laborers to push back against the archives inside of large museums. This is the Washington State History Museum, to think about how people are represented. It's led me to work with individuals that are on death row here in the state of Texas to think about how we care about violence happening in our communities. But it has also led me to birds, and that is what I am here to talk about with you today. So I didn't grow up, going to art museums, but I also didn't grow up going to or paying attention to birds or really going outside a ton. I live a block off of Woodlawn Lake, and about 13 years ago, I walked out in my backyard, and it was wintertime, so there was no leaves on the trees. There were hackberries at the time, and there was this weird-looking blue jay. Some of you who maybe heard me talk about this, but and so I was like, that is such a strange-looking blue jay. And I started like thinking about it as the week went on, and I ended up at a half-price bookstore in the field guides section, flipping through trying to identify what the bird was. And if you heard me talk about this, don't answer, but can anybody guess what the bird was? It wasn't a green jay, so I gave you some hints. It was January, block off of Woodlawn Lake, and it looked like a weird looking blue jay. Not a woodhouse scrub jay. Is it a what? Oh, it totally can be a funny name. I think that no, it's not a blue tit. Yeah, I don't think we have those. Anybody? Yeah, belted kingfisher. That it was. And guess what? You win a prize. I have a $2 bill for you. Here, pass that back. There you go. We have another. But it was a belted kingfisher, and for me, I was like, "What the heck is this thing?" And it made me start paying attention to the world around me in a different way. At this time, I was a full-time grad student. I was a freelance photographer. I had two young kids. My stress levels were like crazy high, y'all. And so what happened, right, is I started as a way to disconnect from all that, I started going out and birding. But very quickly, I realized, as most of y'all in this room know, that birding isn't really about disconnection. It's about connection, right? It's about connection to self. It's about connection to nature around you. And then I started birding with other people, and it became about connection for them. And I said, I was like, I am never bringing birds into my art practice, right? This is for me. I'm keeping it separate. And then, as you can probably guess, I slipped, right? I was invited to be the artist in resident at the DoSeum, which is just right down the road. If you haven't been there, you need to go. And I did this project called Birding the DoSeum. And there is a short little 2-minute video that I want to play as an intro to it. Should I click here? Okay, let's see. We may need to turn it down a touch.
Hi there. Birds are so cool. Did you know there are over 9,000 species of birds in the world? They are direct descendants of dinosaurs and the only animals to have feathers. So what is birding? It's actually pretty simple. It's about looking, listening, and exploring the world around you for birds. It's super fun, and we want to invite you to bird the DoSeum. All around the hallways you will find photographs of birds made by local photographers of local birds. Some are up high and some down low. So, use your eyes to look closely. Also use your ears. If you listen carefully, you will hear clues. Pick up a field guide to help you learn who your new friends are. And the fun thing is, you can take it with you and continue birding at home, or the park, or even at school. Birds are everywhere. Okay, one last thing before you head out to explore. Birds love to move their bodies, so let's join them and get our bodies moving. Stomp your feet, wiggle your body, flap your wings. Now let's go.
I have watched that so many times and I still love it. I still know the kids too. They're all huge inside of it. Right, but it's a simple idea, right? Is bring families into the DoSeum, look for birds. The bird images that you saw there were all made by local photographers. They weren't made by me. Delaney Kemp is not here, right? No, I haven't seen Delaney in a number of years, but Delaney was a person who I used a number of her images. All of the sounds were provided by the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. They let me use them. There were sound modules inside of them. And when you walked into the DoSeum, it was just full of bird song. That I would even catch the employees sometimes turning it down. And I was like, don't do that, because it was so loud. But you would walk in and there was these little birding stations. That video, young kids inviting kids into the project was there. You could pick up a field guide. There was one in the front, one in the very back as well. And then you would walk around and you would get to see these images of birds, begin to identify them, and then get to take the field guide home with you, which is really important. We printed, I think it was like 12,000 of these, and I'm just at the very end of giving them all out. I love making publications because the project can continue to live on after that. Another cool thing, though, is I did, it wasn't just that, but it was doing workshops for little projects inside of the DoSeum. Sorry to those of you online that I just may have totally made deaf. But this was an example. So this workshop, I invited kids to imagine where birds lived, and then they began to make drawings of them. One thing that somebody pointed out to me that I didn't notice is if you look, this kid's actually giving us the bird here. So it's kind of a double layer inside of it. But they made these drawings, right? And so I took them the drawings and I went back to the studio and I fabricated them. I turned the drawings into something real. So you can see they're here. It's such a fun thing. I had never done anything like this before. It was really cool. It could keep going on. But then we took those. And if you've ever been to the DoSeum, there's these big rafters that hang when you walk in. And we hung those, the birdhouses from the rafters there, and then made a large, kind of poster. You can see it here on the wall of all of the drawings that were there. It was this really nice way to just kind of welcome people into it and just getting our minds thinking creatively. Worked with Mitchell Lake Audubon Society. They did a seed balm workshop. I also worked with the local artist Marta Solis, who came in and led a workshop to help kids begin to build these beautiful bird nests from fabric and what do you call those things? Pipe cleaners. Thank you very much. But I think this is an example of you get to do a project or you get to work inside of a residency or do something. How can you expand it out? How can you invite other people to begin to create with you alongside that? So that was the first project that I did. And I got to talk to so many people about birds inside the DoSeum, outside the DoSeum. And I told you all those things already about connection and disconnection, all those things I was thinking about. But what I began to realize as I started to bird more is that yes, it's about the birds. And I love the birds, but really it's also about how we look and listen to the world around us, how we pay attention to these, to everything that's happening. It's about the land, right? Who owns the land that we're on? Is it public? Is it private? Who are the indigenous communities that came before us who've been creating meaning from birds for way longer than we have and are still continuing to do that today? If we think about how do we think about ecology and thinking about our future, and if we want the land to be here, we want the birds to be here for our children's children, what choices are we making? It's thinking about public health and healing. How many of y'all have seen the studies that have shown that listening to bird song and birding reduces anxiety and reduces paranoia, right? And so and stress. I don't know about y'all, but I could always do with a little less stress in my life, right? And so it's thinking about that. And for me, it's also thinking about migration, thinking about human migration, thinking about bird migration, thinking about the ida y vuelta, the kind of the round trip of migration that begins to happen. So yes, it's about the birds, but for me, it's also about all of these other things. And when I began to realize that, I couldn't not continue to work inside of it. As you all know in this room, probably we live along the Central Flyway, one of the most active flyways, really, I mean, yes, in the Americas, and we get to see so many amazing birds at different points of the year. And I was down, and this is actually the mini grant that I got. Thinking about all this, I wanted to start to engage people in thinking about these ideas. So I started to do these artist-led bird walks. And the only thing different between an artist-led bird walk and a regular bird walk is that I know less about birds than most people who lead other bird walks. But also is I encourage us to not only talk about the birds, but to talk about all of these things as well. We do research about where we are. We dig into our own histories and our own family stories, and we begin to talk about that. And doing bird walks for me here, I've now done them in multiple communities across the United States, has been incredibly meaningful for me. And when I was down on the Riverwalk, giving one of these bird walks a few years ago, I heard this song. Here's the other test. Can anybody identify the main bird song in this sound? Oh, you get a $2 bill, right? Here you go. You can, oh, there you go. That's it too. Right. So I heard this song and I was like, oh my gosh. And it was at the very, Painted Bunting. It was at the very beginning. I think it was like, early March or something like that. So they're just getting here. And when I began to look at the migratory range maps, what I realized is that that bird could have been the exact bird that my family in El Salvador had heard just a week before. That bird could have been the same exact bird that my family in Puerto Rico had heard just the week before. And so often we think that we're so far apart, but this tiny little songbird is able to fly back and forth. We really are so connected. And so that started this large project for me called La Misma Canción, which means the same song. And I've been working with different communities across the United States to begin to think about these. One of the first places that I worked in was Prescott, Washington, which is, I don't know if anybody's been in that area, but it is like, it looks like a Windows 95 screensaver, you know what I mean? But the Palouse is real. I mean, this is something that I took out of a car window as I was driving. It's just an absolute beautiful landscape. And there's this little school called the Prescott School District. It's K through 12. There's only a few hundred students, and two of my good friends, Amanda and Tia, have been the long-term artists in residence there. One thing that's really unique about it is there's a river that runs through the back of the school. It's absolutely beautiful. And they have this project that's called When a River Becomes a Cloud, where they've been working with students in the school over a 5-6 year period to do different projects. One of my favorite projects that they did is they needed new basketball goals. One of them faced east, the other one faced west. And so what they did is they did an open call to all the families to upload images of sunsets and sunrises. And the images of the families are printed on the back of the basketball goals. Really, really beautiful. Another really cool thing about the school is that they have photographs of every graduating class since the school happened. It's over 100 years of these photographs that are there. So this is just one that had better lighting than some of the other ones, but in the 1950s. And this is one just from 2020. And if you look at something here, the demographics have changed significantly inside of Prescott. And now inside of Prescott, 70% of the kids that are there are the children of migrant farm laborers. They're the ones who are picking the fruits, harvesting so much of the food that we eat. And so when I was invited to do a project by the teachers and the faculty there, along with the artists, I started to think about birds and I started to think about migration. And so the first thing that I did with the students is we made a map and we started to locate where all of our families had connections to throughout the Americas. And then what we did is we started researching what are the birds that migrate annually between those places to think about the interconnection of that. They are along the Pacific Flyway, so a different set of birds, though some very similar that we're used to. This also, I've had a long-term relationship with the Cornell Lab of Ornithology. They funded this project. They funded some other work as well. I have an installation there, but they've also given me access to the Macaulay Library. And so with the birds that we researched, we then printed off hundreds of images of those, and students started to make tracings of them. And why tracings, right? I don't know about you, but when I draw, it is stick figures, y'all. Like I'm an artist, but I do not draw. And if you're in a classroom, there's always some kids who can draw really well, right? And we're like, they get all the praise, and the other kids are like, oh, like here's some clay, try this, instead. We do that. But tracing became this level, it leveled the playing field. So we started working from real life images. We used alcohol markers on tracing paper, and the kids absolutely loved it. They started tracing, even the teachers got involved and really got into it. And I love it, right? There's these beautiful, like, coming together like a Western kingbird and a barn swallow, like flying together. When would we really see that? And what we did then is we took all of those tracings that they had, we scanned them in and began to work with those. And we ended up creating a really large banner. You can see it here. And this banner served as the backdrop and as a way to begin to, it led to us doing a festival to welcome the birds. This was done in the spring. So we're like, what does it mean to begin to welcome the birds and to teach people about the birds that are migrating there? So this banner went up on the backdrop of the kickball field, really, really prominent. And then we created a small little gallery space inside of the school so the students could share their work with the community inside of there. And then the most fun thing is we had a migratory bird fest. We did all kinds of things. I won't talk about all of these, but you can just read some of the stuff here. Whitman College is really nearby in Walla Walla. They were another funder of the project and helped bring me out to do that. Their Natural History Museum gave us objects so we could display them on campus. This was my favorite. We had college girls teaching mainly middle school boys bird calls, right? And so, oh my gosh, they were so embarrassed. It was really, really fun. We had a bird eating contest where they couldn't use their hands at all, eating out of it. We created this, backdrop and kind of comparing some of the birds that are there that students could like pose on. This was a total hit inside of the festival. Birded, right? The Audubon Society came out and led kids with birding, the scoping. I did birding sessions with so many of the classes that are there. And then there's an aviary in Walla Walla. And so they even brought birds. They're not, they're from all over the place, but brought birds so the kids could actually see them close up. We transformed that school for a day into a live, like full-on bird festival. What's really cool is it hasn't taken the same scale, but it's happening every year from there. I went back in 2025 because just fell in love with the kids and it was really amazing. The question that I asked so many students when I work with them is I say, which bird did you see today? Or what bird have you seen today? And when you start to ask people that, they're like, what? They're like, I don't even see it. And then it becomes this thing. Now I walk on campus and like, sir, I saw this. And what I love, I think I have this picture. Yeah. So with the last time I went, one of the kids knew I was coming to the class. And so he literally I love that he graffitied on the top of the table, kind of saying all the birds that he had seen since my last visit was there. Beautiful kind of yeah. So that was one project. Around the same time, I got a phone call from a museum in New York City called El Museo del Barrio. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of it before, but it was started by Puerto Ricans in the late 60s, early 70s as a way to show Puerto Rican artists' work. As a Boricua, as a Puerto Rican, when I got the phone call, like it was really meaningful to me. My mom like cried, you know, but they invited me to be part of what is called the Trienal. And every 3 years they have a major exhibition where they invite what they say are some of the most exciting artists working throughout Latin America. I was very honored to be a part of it. But it was around the same time as well that politically I was thinking about the connection between San Antonio and New York City. If you can remember, the governor of the state of Texas was taking asylum seekers and busing them to other cities across it. And it really bothered me. And I was thinking about that and thinking about kindness and thinking about what does it mean to be a welcoming community, right? And so we were just talking about that inside of Prescott, Washington. But also, what does it mean to be able to say goodbye to somebody? What does it mean for somebody to be able to return? And when I think about birds in the ida y vuelta, right? Birds aren't just coming here and hanging out all the time, right? What do? They're about to do it. They're about to migrate back. And so I started thinking about that round trip of migration. And one of the things that I did with the kids in Prescott is we had one of the booths was to make signs welcoming the birds. And so that was kind of in my head as well. So what we did for the project in New York City is we began to make signs not just of welcome, but also of farewell. And I often think about it's not just what you're doing, but where you're doing and who you're doing it with, which is really important. So we started off by doing 3 workshops here in San Antonio. How many of y'all have heard of SACI before? An incredible organization. Please support them. We did 3 workshops with students to SACI, starting to make signs. And then I went up to New York City and I started working inside of New York public schools. I started working with college students inside of the museum. And then I even had the opportunity to partner with a record label called Fania Records, which if you know anything about Latin music, Fania Records is like, I mean, they're like the top. And so when that opportunity came about, I was super excited. And guess what? We had a street festival. And this is what you were hearing. People were, I was not going to keep playing, but people were dancing. People were playing dominoes, right? And they were also making bird signs, welcoming the birds. And so, oh, here we go. Let's see if we can get through this. But started making signs out inside of the streets. And I often think I love working in the museum. I love working in schools, but also love working in the streets to give people an opportunity to participate inside of that. And then all of these signs were at the very beginning of the exhibition, welcoming people, saying farewell to people. And the invitation to museum staff was that every time that they walked by it, that they turned a sign around. And so it was a constantly changing installation, and we couldn't fit all of them on the wall. So we changed them out as the exhibition went on. And I just want to share a few of these with you. I love it because there were some people like professional artists, right, that are coming in and making them. And then you have like first graders, like tracing their hands representing birds inside of that. Just going to click through. I think I have like 5 or 6 of these that are here. I love this one, right? I mean, it's so powerful, right? Yeah, look at this one's actually pretty complex if you begin to look at it, right? You have Mexico on one side, you have the city on the other side, transformation of a plane. And I love getting to see the creativity of young people talking about the world. And then, of course, had to do an artist-led bird walk. So we did it in Central Park. I did 2 of them. It was during fall migration. We had warblers that were so exhausted, right? They were just like landing there and I mean, it was kind of magical. We also had to pull permits, and the city of New York approved us for 1 day, but then denied us for another day, which was really interesting, just the bureaucracy of all of those different things. We still did it. So, you know, but I have like the framed, like, you know, like denial of the bird walk. I was like, really? You're going to deny us inside of that? So one other thing too, that I think is really important for me is that for like, being in the Trienal and at El Museo del Barrio was like the largest exhibition that I've ever been in up to this point. And so, but I'm always trying to think about how we can like crack open the art world. So every person that submitted a sign to that exhibition, they also get to put on their resumes or their CVs that they were in the Trienal as well. And so that's been this like model that I'm now trying to do. So this was an exhibition that I had at the Contemporary earlier this year, where we're exhibiting these projects along. We had about 180 people make signs, and at the end of the exhibition in New York, we gave people the opportunity to either come pick up their signs or have us deliver them to them, or they could choose for those signs to be kept in the archive to begin to exhibit around as the project travels. We had another sign making workshop, added about 15 of them. And so as the project grows, people get to also add that onto their CVs and their resumes. And I think as artists, we need to think about the social capital that we have. How can we spread that around? And finances too, if we're able to do that in time. But I love that this is like, it really has changed my practice in the way that I think about it. And so part of every project now is providing people with the information that they can put on their resume or their CV moving forward from that. We're going to start landing the plane now. We'll have some time for questions, but I just wanted to share a couple of projects that I'm working on now. This is the exterior of the Visual Arts Center at the University of Texas at Austin. It's right across from the stadium. Some of you have probably walked by this. What is one thing that you notice about these windows? They're dark, right? And there's nothing on them. And if we think about what Britt was talking about bird glass and what's happening at Trinity, right? There are students who are trying to get bird safe glass on campus, right? And the administration is not doing anything to help them along with that. But guess what? As an artist, I get to go in and we are turning that into bird safe glass for the duration of the exhibition. So I don't see this, I really view it as like an architectural intervention. This project will open in the fall. And then the hope is that they will keep this up, right? And I played around with all kinds of like designs and, different things, but I actually didn't want it to be this artwork that I made that would very easily come down at the end of the exhibition. I wanted it to be, I'm working with Feather Friendly on this. And so I want it to be something that they're going to have to choose whether they take down or not. So really kind of using my place as an artist to try to push for change on campus. But for that project as well, I'm working with Tim Kitt. I don't know how many of y'all know about the Grue Jay and this happening. So I've been working with that team of ornithologists in Austin. I've also been working with ornithologist Andrea Contina, who's down on the border. This is their image of the green jay, and this is mine. What do you notice about this? This is a diorama, right? This is not out in the wild at all from that. I'm also working with the archives of the Texas Ornithological Society and pulling out some images from there. I love this, right? Somebody wrote on the slide the wrong way, but it helps me begin to think about the buff-bellied hummingbird a little differently. Anybody know where this is? This is the very end of South Padre Island. So if you drive all the way down, so I've been, as part of this project that I'm going to be opening at UT in just like 2 months, I've been trying to go to all the world birding centers as well, and then talking to folks there and going to those different places. This is also, there's a lot of construction that's happening around SpaceX right now, and so documenting some of those things are happening and looking at how that's impacting the environment. Andrea Contina, the incredible ornithologist at UT RGV, they have an archive of over 20,000 feathers that they're using for DNA testing. So we're photographing some of those. And then Andrea's big work is he's created sonar, which he is recording the sky at night during migration, looking at nocturnal flight calls so that he can begin to identify individual birds that are actually moving, not just using radar. And so we are getting a sonar unit that will be installed on Saturday outside of my house. Y'all can all come hang out and look at the bucket, right? But then we're also then taking real-time data from 11 sites across the UTRGV or the Valley and Central Texas that will be populated inside of the gallery space at UT. So that's one project. I'm also working on a project. Does anybody recognize who this human being is here? Aldo Leopold. Some of us have read, Sang County Almanac, and did a residency in Wisconsin recently, spent time in Aldo Leopold's archives, and the director, well, this is funny, right, is I found, you see all these pictures of Aldo Leopold as these very, these headshots, and although he worked so much, I mean, looking at his archives, he did so many things, and when I was looking through that, I found this one picture of him taking a nap, and I was like, this is what we should be looking at, like the rest, and so part of the project that I'm working with is with the Aldo Leopold Foundation, but also with the International Crane Foundation right outside of Baraboo, Wisconsin. And so I'm trying to get the foundation to allow me to do like a billboard size image of this, of Aldo resting, to help us think about the important stopover sites that are for cranes and for other migratory birds from there. When I was in the archive, the director told me, she said, I have Aldo Leopold's binoculars in my office. And I said, can I bird with them? And I was like, what a flex, right? That I get to like bird with Aldo Leopold's binoculars inside of there. So I'm also working on some projects where I'm thinking about MODIS. I hope some of you are familiar with MODIS, but MODIS is a network of radio receiver towers where ornithologists are putting small trackers onto birds so we can track and see where birds are going. And so I am really trying to think about MODIS as an artwork, thinking about the towers as sculpture, thinking about the pathways that birds are flying as drawings. And what does it mean to start to talk about MODIS as an artwork? And what does it mean to start taking art funding or funding from the arts and diverting it to primarily unfunded ornithologists to begin to fund putting transmitters on the bird so that we can begin to identify stopover points so that we can begin to focus our conservation efforts in those areas. So these are MODIS lines. So this is where you can see that birds are flying and doing all that stuff. And I am going to stop and I'm going to leave this one question here before I open it to you. But does anybody have old VHS tapes or old reel-to-reel or audio tapes sitting in a box in your closet somewhere? And if you do, I would love to work with you on digitizing those. So I'll just throw this out there and leave it as a little invitation for you. I had 40 seconds left from the timer. So yeah.
I think we're good. We got time for questions if anybody
Yeah,
has
any
questions.
questions